Hi cuties, and welcome back to another video. We are starting off with a fully sanded and prepped tumbler, and I was just measuring my tumbler to make sure that I could divide my vinyl pieces, and I kind of forgot that I didn't need that little extension on the paper cutter. It's kind of a habit. But anyways, I am cutting my vinyl strips to about 1 1/4. It all depends on how thick or how thin you want your vinyl strips on this. I wanted them pretty, not too thick, not too thin, just so that I could have more of the design from the vinyl and so that I can get as much floral pieces in there. You guys have seen many of my videos. I'm kind of obsessed with flowers on tumblers. So yeah, I didn't want to get that big red flower on the bottom of the vinyl, so I ended up cutting a little strip and then cutting my vinyl to the size that I wanted so that I can get the most out of the flower because of the size of my vinyl. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. So then once I have all of my strips ready to go, I am just going to make sure of what pieces I want and make sure that they wrap completely around my tumbler. And we are working on a 30-ounce camper mug today. Um, so I wanted to add some vinyl and some glitter on the pieces, and if you have seen any of my other videos where I wrap a tumbler with vinyl, it's pretty much the same thing. I just cut about 1 inch off of the backing, align it as well as I can onto my tumbler, and then start wrapping the vinyl around, making sure that I keep an eye out for any air bubbles that may be forming so that I can fix that and or pop them with my craft knife after I have finished wrapping my tumbler. So here I am just going to keep wrapping this, and this is kind of a little bit difficult because of that handle, but it's not as hard as it may seem. At least with practice it does become a lot easier in my opinion anyways. So since I do have to wrap the vinyl around that handle, I am going to try my best to align my vinyl first on the bottom and kind of just work and make sure that I rub in the vinyl onto the handle so that it gives you kind of like a guide of where you need to cut in order to have that vinyl going under your design and you just won't have like a big white spot on your tumbler. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I am just trying to cut a little bit as close as I can to the handle. That way it won't be so, um, like you won't have any like white spots from your tumbler once you put down your vinyl under the handle. And um, after the craft knife, I am just going to grab my scissors and try my best to cut as straight as possible. I sometimes do angle my scissors kind of inwards of where the little line is. So it's a little bit thinner of a line that gets left behind, if that makes any sense. So, um, yeah, after you cut that, you're just going to simply place down your vinyl, try to align it as best you can. Here you see I'm just going to push that little piece under and over my other vinyl, and then with that big piece you're just gonna keep putting it down as regular. So now with that little leftover piece, I'm going to cut that off with the X-Acto knife as close to the bottom as I can so that you won't have any of the just to have like a cleaner look on your tumbler. I guess you could try to wrap it around or like cut it from the side. I have never tried that or seen people do that. I don't know if that's a thing. um, but yeah, so now I am gonna go in with my craft knife, and I first define where my vinyls meet, and then I cut about like a 16th or an eighth um, overlap, just so that I won't have any of my tumbler exposed um, from the bottom, from the vinyl, just because it makes your tumbler kind of look unfinished. I know I've done that with some of my other tumblers when I was first starting, that I would try to cut it like right on the line, and then somehow I just like missed the whole piece, and there's like little gouges on my tumbler, and you can see the stainless steel from under that. So here I am just taking the two other pieces that I want to use, and I am just going to wrap them around and kind of measure um, where they are, so that I can have somewhat of an equal distance between all of my tumblers. And I am just going to repeat the same process with the next two vinyl strips. With this one, I ended up aligning it right on the edge where the handle was, like at the end of the handle, so I didn't have to worry about um, cutting any pieces off of the vinyl or wrapping it around the handle. And again, I am just going to define it with my nail and then cut any excess vinyl that I have. So if you're like really picky, you could measure out your whole like design and vinyl strips to have a more um, evenly spaced tumbler, so it won't look like one piece is smaller or bigger than the other. I just kind of wanted to eyeball it. I didn't want to do math. So that's kind of why I'm just eyeballing it. And on this bottom piece, I am just kind of going to again eyeball where I started with my other two pieces, just so that I can have um, all of my seams in, well, in the same direction. So that's what I'm doing here, and I did end up kind of messing this one up, but no worries, because you can always lift your vinyl up and fix whatever mistake you made. So um, yeah, I kind of had a bubble and I didn't notice, so I tried my best to um, lift my vinyl before I completely set it down. And here you see me. Um, yeah, my paint did kind of peel up, but that's okay because it's gonna be covered by the vinyl, and the glitter that I'm gonna use is a dark glitter, so that didn't really bother me too much. So now moving on to the glittered sections. I am starting slow so that I won't get any glitter on to my tumbler, and on, not on my tumbler, on my vinyl pieces. So here I am just going to kind of brush under the handle so that I can get a good coverage on that. Obviously I on the first glittering with the Mod Podge drying quickly, it's not all gonna stay on the same. You can see I have like big spaces there that don't have any glitter, but it's okay because we are going to do a second coat of glitter. So I am just going to move on to my next section, Mod Podge that, and then apply glitter. I am using Black Swan from Obsessed Glitter Co. And I am sorry I keep using glitters that I can't link anymore. She had to close her doors due to personal reasons, but if she ever does open back up, I will put that link, and you guys run and snag this glitter because it is gorgeous. I like this glitter because it shines really well under epoxy. I know as crafters, sometimes we're told not to use craft glitter because it becomes more dull over time under the epoxy. But if you guys want like a really good glitter that shines under epoxy, the Walmart brand from the little kids aisle, that one shines pretty well under epoxy, and it has kind of like a silver tint to it too. So it's pretty good for like um, pencil tumblers, or like if you have those designs that have like a little more, um, not like a super black, but that you need just like a little section of black. I'm pretty sure it'll work fine. Here on the bottom, I am just going to try to cover and align it as best, and I am just going to sprinkle the glitter, and then after I sprinkle the glitter on the sides, I will sprinkle it on the top, and then with whatever glitter is on my paper, I am just going to kind of tap my tumbler onto that glitter to make sure that all of the sections are covered. Again, I wasn't really too worried because I am going to put another coat of glitter. Um, for the handle, it's the same technique. You're just going to want to be very careful where your vinyl pieces are, so that you don't get any of the glitter onto the vinyl. Um, you will most likely end up doing it because I have done that a lot of times, even though I try not to. But um, it doesn't look as bad because I'm going to put vinyl strips over the sections, so you're not really necessarily going to notice it with the pieces that are going to be on the tumbler, like the vinyl strips. So yeah, you just want to be very careful. Make sure you're glittering all of the sides and the bottom and the top of that handle, and then sprinkle it with your glitter. I like to start kind of on the edges because I have noticed that's where the glue dries a little bit faster. So I'm just going to do that on the little edges, and then try to glitter as much as I can from the top and bottom before going on to the bottom side. So um, for the bottom side, you do kind of have to hold your hand at a weird angle so that you can make sure that you have a good coverage of glitter on your tumbler. So um, yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm sorry I kind of placed the tumbler like in front of the camera. Um, but I kind of needed that angle to glitter my handle. Sorry. So now I'm just going to take a dry brush and run it over any of my glittered areas to knock off any excess glitter. And then I am going to go in with a second coat of glitter. And now we are moving on to the epoxying. So as you can see, um, I do epoxy my tumblers in batches, I guess you could say. um, but here I am just going to apply my epoxy. You don't want to use a firm hand because it will like leave your tumbler uneven, and the epoxy could either go to the top or to the bottom, and then you're going to end up having to have a fupa, or you're going to unbalance your tumbler, and then you're going to have to end up going sanding. So you want to try and using light pressure on the tumbler. And here you see I first started with epoxying the tumbler, and then I am going to epoxy the handle. I do kind of go and put epoxy on the sides during this process, but it's mostly that I want to cover my full tumbler first, and then I will just kind of just dip my finger into the epoxy and epoxy that handle, just so that I won't have big puddles of epoxy on the bottom of the handle where it meets with the tumbler, if that makes any sense. But that's what I am doing here. And like I said, you don't want to use a lot of pressure on when you are spinning your tumbler because it is going to make it unbalanced on your tumbler, on your turner, and it might create a problem later on. So that's what I'm doing here. I try to make sure that I have all of my areas covered on my tumbler first before moving on to the handle. Sometimes, obviously, you do miss some areas, and don't forget to epoxy the bottom because I almost did. So yeah, that's what you're just gonna do. Like I said, depending on the design that you want to do, um, you can measure it out. I think it came out pretty even with the vinyl strips and the glitter. So after this, I am going to let this spin and dry for 24 hours. I am using an n.r.b 1:1 ratio epoxy. Um, Please do your research on your epoxy and use the proper PPE in order to protect yourself with your health, and make sure you're not breathing in on any of those little chemicals that is released with the epoxy. Here I am just torching it and making sure that I pop any of the bubbles that form. And this crazy mess is the um it's well, I ordered tape online, but it's more like vinyl strips. Well, it feels like vinyl strips. It probably is vinyl, and I just like bought it like that. But I'm just going to wrap it around my tumbler, and I'm going to cut it into the size that I need on all of my colors. And I'm not using like a ruler or anything this time. I'm just eyeballing it. I really didn't mind just eyeballing it as long as it fit around the tumbler. I was ready to go, and on this um tape or whatever it's called, um it did have like little squares on the back, which is why I think it's vinyl. Um but I tried my best to cut it into the strips, like the size of the strips that I needed, because I wasn't going to um just put a whole bunch of these on my Cricut just to use the Cricut for that. So um I tried my best to cut it where the little square was, or like where it was the thinnest, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's like I tried my best to cut it a certain size, and it did not work out. So um, I ended up having to use my paper trimmer, which was kind of hard because this is a regularly thin tape. So yeah, it was kind of an adventure with this. I experimented a lot with how to cut these little strips into smaller strips. um, but anyways, I ended up using a paper trimmer because like my sizes weren't gonna come out the same. They still kind of didn't come out the same, but it was closer to the size that I needed with the paper trimmer, so it wasn't that bad. I guess after all. So yeah, I tried my best to use a paper trimmer. I did have to tape down these little pieces so that I could get them all to be the same size, or close to the same size that I needed. I did end up having some issues with the tape for some reason. When I would pull it up, it just kind of lost all of the color onto the cup and left just like the clear tapey bit, like empty. I'll show you a little bit later on in the video what I mean, because that's kind of weird. um so yeah, I just ended up cutting it, and I believe it was probably like a fourth of what it was. And this is where I kind of messed up. So I totally forgot that I was going to use my colored pieces first, and I kind of just started going with black vinyl, but I ended up noticing when I was almost done. So I had to peel those back up and then um, putting on my colored pieces. So um, and this is a glow in the dark little piece. I didn't have any issues with the orange lifting off of the clear um, spots of the tape, if that makes any sense. Once I get down to like the blue section, when I am almost done, is where I started having a little more issues. So with that first line, I just aligned it as best as I could to the vinyl and the glitter, and now I am going to put a black thinner vinyl on top of that one. And now I am moving on to my next color after peeling the black vinyl off. So, um, yeah, just kind of, I kind of had a brain fart and just wanted to get it done. So, just be careful of how you're doing your vinyl strips. So, with that handle being in the way, I wasn't able to wrap it completely around, but I ended up cutting it right where the handle was, so it didn't look bad that it wasn't like at the same spot. Um, so now I'm moving on to my blue section, and this is where it was kind of just a little weird. Again, we're just repeating the same process as with the other two pieces. And you can see there, I kind of like was scratching at the tumbler, and it's because of that particular reason. Like the blue kept like popping off for some reason. Um, Here you see I tried to kind of fix it, and then that little blue area just like was there, so I had to cut a completely different strip. And this is the finished product, and this is the glow in the dark. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will try to upload a video on Wednesday, and I will see you. Thank you guys so much for watching.